The moderator for the next session is Dr. Bhaskar, a veteran in the marketing domain. With a whopping experience of more than 3 decades at Bellett Coleman and Company Limited, he joined Z Media Corporation Limited as the Group CEO. Under his leadership, the group, apart from developing unique and rare combinations of expansive media knowledge with cross-functional business competencies across sectors, also reached the pinnacle of revenue growth. Dr. Bhaskar has won laurels and accolades for his brilliant business acumen. Mr. Das has been awarded the Marketing Professional of the Year at the India Brand Summit 2006, the Outstanding Marketing Professional of the Year at the Indira Marketing Awards 2007, the Brand Super Achiever of the Year at the World Brand Congress 2009, the Master Brand Builder of the Year at the World Brand Congress 2010, the Greatest Brand Builder of India at the CMO Asia 2010-11, Most Respected Youth Icon at Awards for Retail Excellence 2011 by the Asia Retail Congress, and the Brand Builder of the Year at the Global Leadership Awards 2012. Bhaskar is also recognized tutor certified by Result Coaching Systems and a prolific speaker with 750 plus hours over the last 29 years at various industry forums and at reputed business schools like Harvard Business School, the Wharton School, MIT, IIA, Shimla, MICA, Ahmedabad, ISB, amongst others. He is a member of the Academic Council of Mudra Institute of Communications, Ahmedabad, and KJ Somaya Institute of Management Studies and Research. He is on the Managing Committee of the India chapter of IAA and the Indian Advisory of Board of Franklin Covey, India and South Asia. He holds a PhD in Marketing Management from Pune University, an MBA in Marketing from Calcutta University, and MA in International Relations from Jadavpur University. He is currently pursuing his second PhD. We are indeed honored to have you with us, sir. And the speaker for the day, for the next session, is Mr. Arun Anant, Director, Revenue and Strategy, HT Media. With over 25 years of experience in advertising, marketing and media, he started his career with Lintas in the year 1988, where he worked for over 11 years in client servicing, market research and account planning. During this stint, he worked with several large multinational clients such as Unilever, Cadbury's and Philips. He has worked with 2 other major media groups, first as business head for Economic Times between 2003 and 2007, and subsequently for 2007 to 2008, he was the CEO of UTV News, later rechristened as Bloomberg TV. He has also had entrepreneurial stints, first with Miles.com, a stock market content portal in the year 2000 to 2002, and later between 2008 to 2011 with Inc. Value Advisory, a consultancy focused on strategy and innovation for startups. Before starting HT Media, Arun was the CEO of the Kasturi & Sons, the publisher of The Hindu. Arun was responsible for several initiatives, including launch of the first ever Tamil newspaper from the group, the expansion of The Hindu in Bangalore, and managing in an intensive competitive launch in Tamil Nadu. I welcome you, sir.
Good afternoon. The advantage of a moderator that he doesn't have to prepare. And, but the only thing, first of all, grateful to the organizers for calling me and the IA president. But only thing is a little unfair that he has put me after Kaushik Roy and Bobby Power, because after their prolific talk and a lot of full-letter words, I don't know have much scope, but I thought I'll start with a joke, which has no connection with anything, but is only for English language lovers. This is a question to all of you, if you know it. This is a recent London conference, someone answered it as an American Indian and got an award. And got a standing ovation. Do you know the difference between completed and finished? What is complete and what is finished? Dictionary we could not find out. So it looks like no one knows it. This is for the young people. Huh? You know it? Then you're a part of the not audience.
People listen, it's good of that.
In the audience, who knows it? That's it. Audience, no one knows. So I can do it. You keep it to yourself. So it's like answer a joke, huh? So you know it. Try it, please. Making it interactive.
So finished, as when we say finished, it's like it has a negative connotation attached to it. And when we look back, there may or may not be anything there. But when we say complete, there will be an entire journey when we look back. Watch.
This is not his laughing. Huh? So this is and this is not my answer, don't curse me, but this is an answer from this American leader. So if you are, you know it?
I just.
By professors to know it.
When a man or woman thinks that he's going to get married, he probably thinks that it's going to be complete. But once he gets married, he realizes that he's finished.
Arsi is good, she's very close. So I tell you, when you get a great wife or good wife, your life is complete. When you get a not so good wife, your life is finished. But the twist in the tale is, if you are caught with the wrong woman, and you are caught by the right woman, a right wife, that is, so you are completely finished. So anyway, so that's the theme of this conference is that of what is next, and I always wondered that before we come to print media specifically, because there is what is coming next is one part of the question, then for you, then for us, and then of course print media. See, I personally feel the next has happened. Where I always grammatically wrong English, I said future has happened. Everything is known now. Only things are getting increasingly uneven. And when I saw who has sponsored it, I said, if I have been specifically told by my one friend, sir, don't belittle print. I said, yeah, sure, I would not do it. Imagine on the stage, sometimes he was my colleague, sometimes he was my arch enemy. Since when he was in HT, he was my arch enemy. When he was in Economic Times, he was my colleague, and of course when he was in Lintas, he was my great collaborator. I'll give my two bits on print about is next. I think I'm not good in astrological function. I really don't know what is the future of print medium. I do not know the future of journalists, but I know the future of news is very bright, and the future of journalism is brighter. The reason, the moral of this observation is that it is not about format. It is about how does one reinvent oneself in the context of the future which has happened. See, some of the predictions I can do about, I always say, whenever I talk, the future has become very predictable now, which is unpredictable basically. But the important part is here that future has to be interactive, future has to be anytime, anywhere. Future, as Bobby said, is about creation of continuous experiences that are transformative, that are useful. That is what I can share and contribute to the community. You have to make a difference. It's not about acts, it's more about acts. So in a sense, future broad meta points are clear. The question is about print, and the more important about brand is no longer about format. It is, since it is anytime, anywhere, it's more platform agnostic. It is more about being real in human life. Consumer is not statistics. So some of the standees that I saw while entering, now this is one company, I'm not giving any commercial plug, I loved it when I saw this Miss Person thing. Now what does a newspaper doing with the Miss Person? They always try to match people, they always talk about covering scandals and perhaps acting as the fourth estate. So such missing person app, or even understanding that since the society is suffering from this continuous partial attention about that crisp news, so it is a regional newspaper which has already embraced the future and which is not confined to its current format. Morning, incidentally, it comes out, but it is always alive, 24/7, anytime, anywhere. Even Indian diaspora might be approaching, might be consuming it. So, in a sense, print media is. They always talk about digital and all that. I think every medium was very digital. Even Kodak was also digital, but still they were out of business. Print media has been digital forever, at the back end at least. But digital is not about technology. Digital is how do you live now? How do you think now? How do you see that deep learning takes place behind the artificial intelligence? We could never think of that like in this hotel. The computer is on the door. You open the door by swiping it. So computer is everywhere. Artificial intelligence is everywhere. So in that world, it is not about whether newspaper, some people argue, no, it is very useful. When it rains, newspaper, people who suffer from constipation is useful. How can you avoid those roles for newspapers? But point is, you can carry Kindle. No? I don't know whether that will act as a purgative, but I think it becomes a newsprint. But it is very, very, very critical that it is not about newsprint. It's news in print. It is not about newspaper. It's news on paper. So if once you bifurcate the words, then you realize that it is more about business model and nothing to do with format. So why should I, in the first place, bother about format of newspaper? It is idea-centric, format-neutral solution. It's about centralized idea, decentralized execution, depending on what format you are using. And once one embraces that, instead of getting morbidly attached to a format, and spiritually they use the word that you are lovingly detached to a format, but doing it. And once I see this, the partner newspaper, I'm passionate about it, and looking at it, I understand that there's some thinking going on, that you are doing social cause networking. I think they have understood the future. Let's see how HT or Arun, for that matter, have understood. I'm sure he's a very knowledgeable guy, and I respect his cognitive bandwidth. I really suffer from cognitive malnutrition vis-a-vis him. But I think Arun would definitely give a perspective. After he presents, we shall engage in some discussion, and of course you can ask me any question that you want.
Thank you, Bhaskar. So we're going to do this a little differently. I've got a very short presentation, a couple of slides. We'll follow that with some Q&A between Bhaskar and me. Because quite frankly, I must say that we don't have all the answers. At least I don't have all the answers on print media. It is still work in progress, and I guess it will always be work in progress. But having started my life in advertising, I do know that whether I know something or not in front of a client, I will always sound very convincing, and that's what I'm going to do. In the earlier presentation, of course, Bobby and Kaushik made life a little easy for me. Kaushik kept talking about 6 seconds, and Bobby showed a lot of television ads with some expletives, which made it easy for me to start my presentation with this print ad. Sing for a while. Now think about this. This ad, you can't show that in 6 seconds, right? So there is so there's going to be a lot of advertising that I think works best only when it is on print. And some of the ads I'm going to show is really going to evoke and prove that sentiment. So as Bhaskar said earlier, when it comes to print media, actually there are two aspects to it. And since we have students here who are both studying journalism and doing business and therefore advertising, there are two aspects to it. There is future of print in terms of what is the future of print in terms of news, and there is future of print in terms of what is the future of print in terms of advertising, which is an intrinsic part of today's print media and newspapers, right? And the two are not mutually exclusive either. They interact, and different companies can have different models on how to charge for news and how to charge for advertising, right? And having said that, I do believe that advertising is news, and advertising works best when it creates news. And over the recent past, we see a lot of news also which merges with advertising, which is now elegantly called native in today's parlance. So I'm going to show you some example of some ads, and with this I'm also proving that print advertising works. And typically nowadays creative directors and copywriters like to present a lot of television advertising because the sentiment in the advertising industry over the last 10-15 years has been one of audio-visual, but print continues to maintain its hold in the business. So an ad like this, it's a question of how creative you can get to be able to get the best out of a medium, right? I think Nike would be a perfect sponsor for Swachh Bharat, right? And this also kind of establishes that, maybe print is better than outdoor. There's a lot of advertising that you can do, I thought, there'll be lots of youngsters here. And this ad appeared last week, right? I'm sure most of you are thinking of the matrimonial ads, but so we've got a good business model. We'll first get you to advertise for finding a bride, and after that we'll get you to advertise for things like this. So that's your complete and finished story, right? Look at this one. Cab drivers wanted nights and weekends, and this is a daily ad, so you should not be surprised. You must have good driving and criminal record. So we do both. And I think the girls will like this. Free to good home, beautiful 6-month-old male kitten, orange and caramel, blah blah blah. Or handsome 32-year-old husband, personable, funny, good job, but doesn't like pets. Which one do you want? So you get what I mean. Advertising works and print advertising works, and this can be done at fairly good cost. Look at this one. I can advertise to sell. I can also advertise not to sell. Nissan Maxima, good condition, $4,500, not for sale.
You're going wrong
I'm
direction.
going the wrong direction. And this is what happens when you spend too much time on your mobile. And this is the real ad. This is the real ad. So my ad operations guy, whose job it is to key in these, was distracted with his mobile and landed up doing this typing. This is a picture from Google Earth. Um, and this is an interesting story, and I wanted to tell you, I wanted you to know the problems that you can have with the digital world. So there was this woman who had a doubt, who was not, who thought her husband was having an affair, but she couldn't prove it. Till this Google Earth map landed up capturing this image of this guy in front of his mistress's house and with the car registration number. So that kind of stuff would not happen. Now imagine this guy now, instead of this guy now has to, instead of buying a house, now has to pay alimony. I think someone asked about experiential advertising at the back, right? So there's a lot of contextual advertising that we can do. And then this one, I asked my girlfriend if she could get me a newspaper. Don't be silly, she replied. You can borrow my iPad. That spider never knew what hit it. Okay. I don't want to show that. So essentially what I've established is that there is a lot that can be done still with print advertising. I'll now move into a Q&A to defend the position.
Yeah. See, I agree with Arun that printed words are believed. See, Saif Ali Khan could have made a video of 30 seconds to convince Karina, but he has to write her name on his hand just to prove a point. This time, first time he did not do it. The second time he did it. But Arun, while you have shown the rosy picture, fact remains, especially print media is not growing at the same space, digital or for that matter. Television is growing. Today I know it because I dabble in television a little bit. And if at all within print, if at all is growing, it's regional and not so much English. Though English is disproportionately priced compared to the reach that regional newspapers doing. And when you go to another example of that, how much advertising agencies give importance to print, when they say that the client doesn't want to pay for the material being prepared. So no one is huge quantism and others, Bobby parts of the world don't flaunt that they have created great, fantastic print ads. They show a lot of audio-visual ads. So in a scenario like this, and there are some categories like classified is shifting. If you see that digital space, your classified, of course, including matrimony, and your real estate. So there are migrations happening, and are you anxious about that? Is it going to question the whole low price, cover price model, and as a result, business models are under pressure? So from that point of view, sheer existence is in doubt now.
See, this has been, I agree with everything that you've said.
No, I'm trying to provoke you, so you don't get me. Because they have to learn, they have to know that is this the issue or something else is the issue?
No, see, firstly, Bhaskar, I agree with everything that you said, which is that there is a lot of competition. There is a lot of competition which is cutting across categories, and boundaries are getting blurred, right? Having said that, that's the fun. Now, you use the word anxious. Anxiety is a function of what role you are playing in the business. Are you the owner of the newspaper business? Or are you an employee in the newspaper business? Or are you a reader? Or are you an advertiser? And the role of competition varies, and the way you look at competition varies depending on what is the role you're playing in the organization. I think as far as the guys here are concerned, that's fun because if a job is not challenging, you're not going to enjoy it and you're going to quit it and go, right? Like, otherwise, you'd rather be a ball bearing seller in Shivaji Nagar. So to that extent, it's fine. Having said that, it is never either or. I think they all coexist. And it is for print to reinvent itself, to be able to cope with the situation. But the fact is that back in 1991, when satellite TV came to India, everybody expected print to die. So it's now 25 years since that time, and nothing like that has happened. So to think that something like that would happen now will happen only if you make it a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if you work towards it and embrace all these alternate delivery vehicles and the technologies available with it to the print medium, and going back to the earlier presentation, if you work towards a lot more of experiential advertising where you create stories, where you create higher levels of brand engagement, I don't think there would be a problem. The fact is, when television came 20 years back, all of FMCG advertising moved away. But the fact is that in the last 2 years, FMCG is the highest growth category for newspapers and magazines. So it's a question of reinventing yourself and keeping the faith and having your staying power. Because these ups and downs will happen.
No, see, thank you. You answered the question, but still somehow it got skirted. Because see, Bill Gates is the first person who said in the late 80s that newspaper is dead, going to be dead before the turn of the century. The next one that talked about the 2040 last copy will be printed. I'm not talking about the demise, but as much as the telltale signs are so much visible. Just now you talked about FMCG. Now, will you charge it, say for instance, the charging like your tender notice ads or for that matter your automobile ads? You won't. No, so you know that there is a challenge that one has to counter, so you discount. Which means the question is not about discounting. The question is that is print overpriced? Because even today between vernacular or regional language and English, there is a, which used to be once upon a time when I joined this industry, 1:10, perhaps it is 6:4 or something like that. It's a vernacular is catching up. But fact remains, you ask the other place sitting here, media buyers complaining the cost efficiency. Again, back to business model. I was telling you it is about business model. So is the countering route is justify the print works or is it justify advertisers' money works? That's the question. So it is not about survival of print as much as survival of advertisers' business and also the business model of the media owners. I'm saying that somewhere there are 2-3 telltale signs I see. One is that of format rigidity. It is about we don't care what value we deliver to the advertisers, or for that matter, year-on-year growth is important, whether the advertisers' growth is happening or not, and the price performance ratio.
So understood
from those points.
I think these are fairly detailed questions. I'm not sure if our audience knows so many details of this subject. Having said that, I'll answer this question in several parts because there are several aspects to this question. One, it has been proven that print advertising in association with digital and with television gives a phenomenal upside on ROI. So for example, in the auto sector, it has been proven that print advertising along with television and digital increases ROI by 70%. In the retail business, it increases by 200%. There is no sector in which the ROI does not increase with print advertising. So that's point one. Point two is then a question of what is the price. Now, and you use the word overprice. What is overprice? Overprice is a matter of perspective and it is a matter of context. What is overprice for one and therefore overprice for one category is different for from what is overpriced for another category. So when an individual is advertising, like the advertisements that I showed, where there is going to be higher price sensitivity, what overpriced means, there's a fairly low barrier. But for an auto advertiser, say, who has spent 8 years in developing his car model, what is overpriced would be a fairly high amount. And having said that, it's a promiscuous world today, and people have too many images bombarding them. If you do not take a decision today, in the next 10 days, you would have had 500 other options cutting across categories for you to take decisions on. And the fact is, print advertising gives you 100% reach in one day, whereas for television, to get a 90% reach in a given market, you will need to take 500 GRPs, which will take you at least 15 to 20 days. And 15 days is a hell of a lot of time for today's audiences. So again, what is overpriced? It's a matter of perspective. But having said that, companies will have to change their cost structure. Surf was overpriced vis-a-vis Nirma. Then the company had to completely re-engineer themselves in the Sun Unilever to be able to launch Wheel. So if there is demand for a given price and it doesn't fit with the company's cost structure, the company will have to change its cost structure. It's as simple as that. That's the challenge, that's the beauty, and that's the fun of working.
See, you must be wondering why I'm asking this question. All 4 pieces of marketing you have heard. In my question, I couched the product, the brand requirement. I'm talking about pricing requirement. There may be a distribution part. I expected him to touch, but perhaps I'll give him a cue now before I go into Q&A, because I know that my time is there 45 minutes. The one part, Arun, you can talk about is that when I talked about distribution, anytime, anywhere, I gave a hint there that today HT is one of the companies which are very digitally savvy. They have invested into technology in such a manner. And when I saw that deeply classified section, classified is not classified, it's a classified floor, where I went there and saw what they're doing. As of now, no newspaper company has done this, so far I know. You have seen the biggest media company also. So is it, so you are on the right direction in terms of future of news and journalism. You are redefining it. It's not currently on a drawing board perhaps, but that remains. I was driving towards that or even as Vijayavani, there's one part you must know, that there's a gentleman sitting here who worked with us. We bought the company from there when I was in Times of India, and he not only worked, then he again went out and second time repeated his success by overtaking a Times of India brand. It's not easy. So he's doing something right in terms of decoding maybe the audience characteristics, and you are also doing that in the context of the future. I want to drive home, that is the last part of my point, that if you are actually getting ready for any time, anywhere, what revenue will get redistributed. New York Times is talking about freemium model. We are not charging as yet. So is there new pricing models? Is there new branding? Is there new apps? Is there new realities of brands that are coming, which is going to improve, sustain the so-called print medium's future? So it is not about print medium as much as the whole news business you will be reinventing. Is that the solution? Or is that the next?
Bhaskar, I think my answer is simply yes.
I've answered everything. My question and the answers.
I think the answer was embedded in that question, but I think having said that, what you should know is that Bhaskar's coming from Z, which has been in the television space for the last 25 years, and after 25 years of being in television and being a successful media house, they're now launching a newspaper. Right? So that should be proof that this is a business of the future.
Yeah, interesting. But I know how to talk with this. See, one part in newspaper you must know. The big daddies have nothing to worry. When these Times of India, Hindustan Times, Dainik Bhaskars, Dainik Jagrans, Prajavanis, Vijayavanis of the world. So big that Hindu, Telegraph, so all of them are in a pretty robust position because the pecking order concept works. In television it doesn't work, in digital it doesn't work. There is completely parity competition. And here winner really takes it all. All the winners are sitting with at least 70-80% of the revenue of the industry. You know, like sometimes we argue that, can you imagine Apple has 14% market share of smartphone and 93% share of the profit of the industry? But you cannot get it better than that. And or Uber, for instance, its valuation is 52 billion, and the next in line, which is Lyft, is only 2 billion. Now, that's really winner takes it all. Here it doesn't happen that way. So, but definitely I would say they're sitting on all the leaders in the newspaper business as of today. They're dominating 60 to 70%. So, print that way, they have ensured that they're great future. Dainik Bhaskar today is one of the cutting edge of the digital innovation that they're doing, as I told you, HD. And so, I think we'll open the floor to the to questions. You can ask any question to both of us, we are pretty optimistic about. Again, I'm repeating. I will not use this word. What is coming next in the print? What is next coming in news? And what is next in my business model? Yeah.
So considering 55% of India's population is millennials, and being part of one, I was in the masters where I say that most of us are much more on digital media platform and social media platform. Now, when you said that via your print newspapers, your reach is 100% in a day, but via social media, it might be 90%. So I sort of disagree with you on that front because your target audience is much more on digital platform and social media networking is why you will get 100% reach there. Maybe we talk about Facebook or Google. Most of us visit there daily, but not newspapers. We read newspapers on our apps. So how will you defend that? Like, how is the reach 100% in a day in print and not in social media?
So the reach is 100% on print in a day because the people who are reading the paper read it every day. It's a habit, right? And therefore research has said, research has proved that it takes, what is target audience? Target audience is the people that you want to meet who are relevant for your brand, right? They're not all in one vehicle. So when you are talking about digital, they're across 100 different digital platforms. Now for me to reach you, and at this point of time we're only talking about reach, we're not talking about quality of reach. For me to reach you and the other 90 people takes me 15 to 30 days. You're right, those days will reduce over time, right? But the nature of the beast, the nature of a newspaper vehicle is that it gets its set reach on a daily basis. There is no incremental reach with every subsequent day of a newspaper read. So as long as you're able to still push it through, in India, say the current vendor system, and as long as you still have meaningful content, which is getting into the content space, there will still be scope for the business. Now, the challenge therefore is, how am I going to provide content which you would want to read and for which you want to pay? That challenge remains, and therefore there is an anxiety as far as that's concerned.
May I compliment the answer? See, I've noticed one thing, that suppose you say that you may not be reading the physical format. I've seen the established brands. So I'll read Hindustan Times in my iPad or maybe mobile, or maybe say for instance when Mr. Ambani comes out with his live, you might be reading it on your handset, which will be very accessible for a young man like you as opposed to an iPhone. With it more and more broadband getting accessible more, you would see the brands which you actually see or your parents have seen or heard about. You look at Times of India, look at Economic Times, you look at Mint and all that. People are reading it, and incidentally on the online, when I'm on tour, I travel, I read it only on the web. It's not that only millennials only, because it's more about your attitude, and your mobile is more about mobility. So I think when he's saying that print reaches, it's a fact, but they are also taking care of it that people like you, tomorrow when you become the chief wage earner, the paper may not come, but you are affiliated to the brand. I think that's what you wanted to say?
True. I still need to provide content to you which is different and which will surprise you. And therefore, the kind of content that I provide, you are not seeking it, but it comes as a surprise to you. And I think newspaper can provide that surprise. I am not saying that other vehicles will not provide that surprise. Question is how well and how much better are you going to be able to do it.
Well, I agree to most of it. Let me die or something. A perfect example would be that all of us use smartphone like a touchscreen. But saying that QWERTY pad phones are still there, they do have a market. So that's exactly, I think, the point which you're trying to say that print media will exist. My question next is, this is happening for now. What comes next in print?
I started, that's why the disclaimer saying I don't know.
And it will exist. What is next?
Yeah. So I'm hoping that it will not be a case of a mobile phone versus the landline. Because the landline was not able to offer anything which the mobile could not, right? And the mobile could offer a lot which a landline could not. But let me give you an example. I was at a client call yesterday. I was with the Mercedes-Benz office, and this was my sales pitch. So you can decide whether what I said was right or wrong, but that was the sales pitch. I said with Ola and Uber coming, it's easy to go around without having a car. In my days, owning a car was the big status symbol. So back in 1987, if you got yourself a Maruti 800, it was a big boom. But today it won't be a status symbol. But today probably the status symbol is, if I have to own a car, I have to own a work. Otherwise I can drive an Ola. So that is an insight that you can work on. And this goes back again to the earlier presentation. What are the insights? What are the consumer insights? What are the technology insights? And what's going to change? And are you aware enough, and are you able to play it to your advantage? So maybe the mid-price cars will not be there, but that doesn't mean cars will not be there. So the cars will have to change their position so that it still is an aspiration for you to own a car, because it's quite painful and difficult and expensive to own a car otherwise, especially when you have Ola and Uber. So if I'm a car manufacturer, that's what I have to be thinking.
You know, again,
So it's like that.
I have to now talk as a student. I'm also a student now, no? I'm talking to a student now. When a student asks, tell me yes or no, what is next? Discovery is a strategy also. So it's more about exploration and not yes or no. There is really, I won't say 50 shades of grey, but definitely 40 shades of grey. If you are looking for a deterministic answer, rest assured, you can never do any innovation. Now, point is, anyone is saying that I think this will not happen. This has been told in Nokia boardroom also about iPhone. This has been told in Kodak boardroom, believe me. Everyone thinks like that. I have seen someone told me nothing will happen to television in my own company, will happen to television in this country. Digital is not going to work in this country. When you see your driver is using your Google map. So I feel, what will happen to the drivers? You say Google has failed in driverless car. Good, no. All these failures will lead to a new thing. Point is, as a student or as a future exam hall that is going to come in your workplace, it is very important. If anyone, your bosses are giving you a deterministic answer, he doesn't know. As simple as that. My biggest advantage, I say, is the ignorance part. So don't look for what is next. Next has arrived. If you know all these very Bhaskar people and all that, you look at, they say that they're so instant. They make 500 stories in a day. Newspaper does 125. Why? Because Google algorithm says you will not get your number. You will not be searched. So they have a 24/7 newsroom. You go to any newspaper office, today it's not 24/7. So they are aware of it. So what is next is that he said, I still survive. Some people will say newspaper will go into long form, whereas in shorts or a flipboard will be in short form. But you have an appetite that what has happened in Michigan. I want to see it in a long form blog or a long form thing, opinion pieces and all that. So newspaper has to also migrate, because newspaper cannot break stories. They are giving yesterday's news today. 90% of them, trust me on this issue. But still you read it because you get a perspective. So it is not about, as he said initially, it is not about either or. You can stay as a complementary option. Every business will survive, provided you change with the time and with the audience. So millennials will come as a chief wage earner. Obviously, you will not read newspaper for your toilet, but maybe you will require for something else in terms of maybe, okay, you don't require anything. Every answer you get in Google, most of the answers you get in Google, except that when you see the line in front of a temple, you realize Google can't answer something. So fundamentally, next is now. And the biggest newspaper companies in this country are investing in it. It's very difficult to leave the bread, butter, jam, jelly, 90% revenue coming from there. But they are going there to ensure certain amount of audience. So the day newspaper is dead, they will pick up that business and will charge the same price. Rest assured. Isn't it? Any other question? Yeah.
So, we are all aware of, we are all aware.
Your question is very shrill.
Thank you, sorry. So we are all, I think that
Why don't you come forward and ask the question? I'll repeat it in case anyone misses.
yeah, so we are all aware of inorganic advertising in the newspapers in form of product review articles. Don't you think that there's a clash of objectives? I mean, newspapers are supposed to be vehicles of reliable information, whereas advertising is more concerned with promoting the product. So, don't you think that there's a clash? If yes, which objective is more important to you as a print media advertiser?
Before he answers, I think I would just say this thing. Today, you'll be surprised. Research have shown that people read ads also, because otherwise, dhunte reh jaoge. In the sense, you will not be able to find out things. You know, there are companies who do it, but believe me, consumer is not a moron. They will find it out. Okay. Otherwise, all these aphrodisiac ads would have made Indians very happy. Okay. I think when any product information comes, suppose there's a technology page in a business newspaper, it shows that this mobile is good, this downloads are good. That doesn't mean they're plugging anything. By that logic, Google search, the more money you pay, your alphabet will come higher. Isn't it? Where is net neutrality then? It is important to remain neutral and give information that is utilitarian, because news definition has changed from northwest to south. What is important is tell me how do I navigate my life, because people have some bit of information. What they require is get me trusted navigation so that you become a decision support system. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think, Bhaskar, that's fine. But I think what you should know is that whether it is an advertisement or whether it is a story, an article, it has to be engaging. And as long as it is engaging, it will be read. Then it's only a question of what are the disclaimers or what are the qualifiers that you add on to a given story or a given advertisement. And there will always be a debate on what should be the extent of a disclaimer, and that will keep varying with changing society. It's like, if I start by saying, let me be honest with you and say something, it doesn't mean that I'm more honest, or it doesn't mean that I am not dishonest, but I have given a disclaimer or a qualifier to what I have said. So qualifiers and disclaimers will have relative utility in different contexts at different times in society. Fact is that the story or an advertisement has to be engaging. And if it is, even for example, let's if you are a fan of Federer and you watched Federer 2012 Wimbledon final live, right? Which is when he won last time. The next day, you will still read 10 articles on that match, right? And if there is a journalist who has written that story differently, with nuances, with context, with history, it will still divide you.
See, no more questions, but please continue to remain curious. But because of time constraint, we're a great audience, and thank you organizers for giving us this chance. We can always answer questions on email these days, but thank you very much for being a patient listener and whatever interactivity you could do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I totally agree with Mr. Das and Mr. Anant when they said that idea is centric and medium is just secondary. Right? Because when I interacted with the students, some of my students, personal experience, I could see that most of the reading public, when they are introduced, we tend to believe that the Generation Y would always want news at fast pace and at their fingertips and probably reading it on a smartphone. But surprisingly, when I spoke to some of my students, they said they prefer to read books rather than resort to a Kindle. Similarly, I personally feel reading a newspaper in the morning, and it's quite intoxicating. It's a luxurious activity when it is accompanied by a cup of hot coffee. So I have many of my students who still prefer to read books and read the newspaper. So I still feel print is here to stay forever. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Now I request Ms. Babita Joseph, the head of the department CMS, to honor Mr. Bhaskar Das.
Excuse me.
Unlike Bobby, I won't do that, but I'll give it to someone who will ask the last question.
I request, I call upon Ms. Nidhu Nair, faculty, BBM, to please come and hand over the bouquet and the mentor to Mr. Anant.